Aboriginal indigenous to this land. We've been here not a couple thousand years, not 10,000 years, hundreds of thousands of years. We ain't brought here from nowhere, no how. We've been coming back and forth here even before the land separated. So that ain't, that old diaspora stuff is modern, contemporary social engineering controls to separate these people mentally from their inherited land. Example, we used to always meditate up at the lakes, right? And those lakes are atomic lakes. They're not natural. They were made atomically.
Which lakes are these, brother?
We're talking about Ontario, Erie, etc., Michigan. All of those are atomic lakes, and they'll always have a mist over them.
So you're talking about the Northern American,
yes, for the
Southern
West,
Canadian.
Yes, to feed the whole Western Hemisphere of fresh water, including the Red River, which is also the Nile that they call the Mississippi, was dug. That's not even a natural river. We used it for trade, and we got mounds all on that river, all on up into Canaan land.
Absolutely great news. So purportedly, my name is one of the many names that will be in this so-called lawsuit that the Native American people are bringing toward black indigenous people or black Indians or black pretendians, however they like to say it. Either way, I'm ecstatic because let me tell you something. We've been trying to do this for so long, just get the federal court to say something, just you either are or you aren't, but they keep rendering all these conversations mute. So firstly, on behalf of all black indigenous people here in the United States, we thank you. We thank you because not only are we astute, I didn't say it right, not only are we astute in history, we're also astute in legal jargon. We've read every treaty, every law, everything, we've read it. And you're going to open up a door that no one else wants to open up. We thank you. Now that is the best example of brother and sisterhood. Open the doors for your brothers and sisters to be able to walk through it. And I'm not being facetious. I am literally excited. Like, I got chills all over my body because I'm so excited because, again, what you're ready to do is you're going to open the door for something the colonizers already knew, which is we will have the largest nation in the United States, thanks to you. 100% thanks to you. And I also want to thank you guys for bringing awareness to who I am and the Yamasee. You see, my people were downplayed in history for so long. Like, no one knew about the Yamasee War of 1715, right? They only knew about the story of those of you all, our brothers and sisters, because you're still our brothers and sisters, who were put in boarding homes, your hair was cut, your names and identity was taken, and no one ever questioned, well, who were the Indians that were put into slavery? Well, my family, thank you for informing them. Thank you for letting them know it was our people. Thank you for waking up so many people of color who had no idea that they could be a black indigenous person or their ancestors were black indigenous people. And because of your willingness, thanks to you, they're waking up to this. We can't wait to see you in court. I promise you, we'll bring at least 1,000 of our attorneys. And you remember, please don't get upset. This is for the best of the culture. It's for the best of Native American society, because finally we'll get a chance to put this to rest. We will finally be able to put this to rest. And we're really hoping that you're bringing your federally recognized tribes and nations forward. We don't want just regular Indians without cards. Okay, if you're not a card carrying Indian and you're trying to file this lawsuit, please don't come. It doesn't help us, because we need the federal tribes to come forth so that this can be a federal thing, which then just takes it to a whole nother level. But again, we love you. We thank you. We thank you. We really honest do. And we look forward to seeing you guys. Great news, TikTok.
Why does a Virginia court oversee the Titanic shipwreck? By Sylvie McNamara. Earlier this week, in coverage of doomed OceanGate voyage to the Titanic site, An intriguing tidbit leapt out. The court that oversees matters having to do with the Titanic is apparently located in Virginia. Sorry, what? The world's most famous shipwreck is managed by a judge in Norfolk? How could that possibly be? It's the jurisdiction that's confusing. The Titanic was a British ship owned by an American company that launched in England and was bound for New York. The ship sank in international waters, and its wreckage, located closest to Canada, was discovered by a joint French-American expedition. There's no obvious tie to Virginia, so why does the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia oversee the wreck? According to experts in maritime law, that story involves a wine decanter from the Titanic and the quirks of a little-known subspecialty called the law of salvage. But it all starts with a 19th-century ship that went down off the coast of South Carolina carrying $1 billion worth of gold. The case of the SS Central America. In 1857, at the height of the gold rush, the SS Central America set sail from Panama to New York City, laden with the fruits of the California goldfields. But when the ship broke apart in a hurricane, its treasure sank to the sea floor, where it lay for over a century. Then, in the 1980s, new technology enabled previously untouched artifacts to be hauled up from the deep. Shipwreck fever struck. Among treasure hunters, the SS Central America, known as the Ship of Gold, became something of a grail. Whoever found it was bound to become fabulously rich, and in the fall of 1988, someone did. A marine engineer named Tommy Thompson, who located the wreck a couple hundred miles off the South Carolina coast. It was absolutely phenomenal, Thompson told a reporter. Gold is very bright down there. There were rivers of gold coins, carpets of gold. Bags that held gold dust were long gone, but the dust was stuck together. To claim ownership of this gold, Thompson's expedition had to establish it to the shipwreck. And in Admiralty law, salvage rights are typically granted to the first team that presents a recovered artifact to a court. With multiple competing missions trawling nearby waters for the wreck, Thompson's team was frantic to get an artifact before a judge. According to the LA Times, the first thing the team pulled to the surface was a lump of coal coated with deep-water organisms. That was good enough. The crew apparently hung it from the ship's rigging, where a small plane grabbed it and flew it straight to Norfolk. That was their court of choice, according to the book Ship of Gold in the Deep Blue Sea, because its case law seemed favorable to their interests. And there was also a historical connection. Those who were rescued from the sinking Central America were taken to port in Norfolk. Once the coal arrived at the airport, the expedition's lawyer rushed it to a judge, who granted Thompson's team exclusive salvage rights. This outcome wasn't necessarily expected. Before that case, the law of salvage had only been applied to wrecks in U.S. waters close to shore. But the SS Central America went down over 100 miles out at sea, which muddied the jurisdiction. By granting private salvage rights that far out, the court set a new precedent. As the salvage operation played out, wild drama unfolded in Norfolk, most of it involving a battle between 39 insurance companies, a band of Capuchin monks, and Columbia University. A different court handled Tommy Thompson, absconding with his treasure without paying his investors. He's now in federal prison in Ohio because he allegedly refuses to tell prosecutors the location of 500 of the ship's missing gold coins. Amidst this chaos, the Eastern District of Virginia apparently performed well. The SS Central America case was a blockbuster, covered in newspapers nationwide, and it helped establish Norfolk as a premier venue for complex legal issues involving shipwrecks. Enter Titanic Court. In 1993, representatives of a private salvage company walked a wine decanter recovered from the Titanic wreck site into that same court in Norfolk, seeking exclusive rights to the ship. Typically, salvage rights are granted to the initial discoverer of the wreck, but oceanographer Bob Ballard, who found the Titanic in 1985, had declined to recover any artifacts, believing that the site should remain untouched. Given that there's no particular connection between Virginia and the Titanic, why did the wine decanter wind up in Norfolk? Well, salvage companies can choose to land artifacts in whatever court they want. By the 1990s, Norfolk had actually become a desired location for significant historical shipwrecks. says Dustin Paul, a Norfolk maritime lawyer. "We have very well-respected judges here who are familiar with these types of issues." Ole Varmer, a retired lawyer with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration who specializes in shipwrecks, cites the legacy of the SS Central America when explaining how Virginia snagged the Titanic case. With the Central America, he says, the court asserted for the first time that the law of salvage could be applied to a wreck more than 100 miles outside of U.S. territory. The Titanic went down in international waters, so Varmer speculates that Norfolk seemed like a friendly court. In 1994, the Eastern District of Virginia granted salvage rights to RMS Titanic, Incorporated, known as RMST, though the rights came with significant caveats. Since the Titanic wreckage is of such obvious historical value and is the resting place of the more than 1,500 people who drowned, the judge imposed conditions to protect the public interest. Among them, he stipulated that the salvaged artifacts must always remain together, relics can't be sold off piecemeal, and that the collection must remain available for exhibitions and research. Such restrictions were unprecedented. There's no other case like Titanic, Varmer says. No other court has mandated that historic preservation and conservation standards be complied with. This certainly benefits the public. Lots of shipwrecks are sold piece by piece into private collections, meaning that the artifacts aren't available for research or public display. Over the years, RMST has salvaged thousands of artifacts, including spittoons, paper currency, leather shoes, branded china, vials of perfume, and a huge piece of the ocean liner's hull. And the recovery of each of these artifacts has been overseen by the Eastern District of Virginia, making Norfolk a hub for Titanic activity. "We always seek the court's approval before we take any action at the wreck site," says Brian Wenger, an attorney for RMST. In addition, the court regularly reviews plans from various other operations with ambitions to visit the wreck site, including Ocean Gate, the company that operated the submersible that was lost this week. Letters from Ocean Gate's lawyer to the court demonstrate that Eastern District of Virginia Judge Rebecca Beach Smith has been reviewing their expedition plans for multiple years. On Thursday, the Coast Guard located the wreckage of Ocean Gate's Titan submersible about 1,600 feet from the site of the Titanic, close enough that the vessel's salvage or recovery could plausibly affect the Titanic. Since Judge Smith oversees operations in the vicinity of the Titanic, legal issues surrounding the submersible might also appear in court in Norfolk. This would be yet another high-profile maritime catastrophe to be handled there. If there's litigation about the implosion of the vessel, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up in the Eastern District of Virginia, Varmer says. The people suing will look for a forum that will be most favorable to them, and in terms of jurisdiction, that would make sense. I don't know of another U.S. Admiralty court that's asserted jurisdiction on the continental shelf of Canada where this accident occurred. Asked about the possibility of legal action, Wenger, the attorney for RMST, hesitates. What's most important is these people and their families, he says, mentioning that P.H. Nargeolet, one of the original discoverers of the Titanic, who also worked with RMST, was aboard the wrecked submersible. Our thoughts are with P.H. and his family, and with the other folks, Wenger says. But yes, issues regarding salvage could well end up in the Eastern District of Virginia. This story has been updated to reflect the reason that Tommy Thompson's crew chose to land their coal in Norfolk.
Ancient America, did you know, in the history year of 1910? The 13th decennial census of the United States shows the population to be 92,228,496, including about 8,795,000 immigrants who have arrived since 1900. The center of population is in Bloomington, Indiana. Illiteracy has decreased to 7.7% of persons over the age of 10, compared to 10.7% in 1900. Only one new state, Oklahoma, was admitted during the preceding decade. In the second year of President Taft's term, the split deepens between the conservatives and progressives in the Republican Party. A rift also appears in the relations between the president and his predecessor, Theodore Roosevelt, who comments on his return from a foreign tour that Taft completely twisted around the policies I advocated and acted upon. In the congressional elections, progressive Republicans win significant victories in the West, and Republicans are defeated by Democrats in many eastern and Midwestern states. Theodore Roosevelt calls for government supervision of capitalization, not only of public service companies, including, particularly, railways, but also all corporations doing an interstate business. His concept of a square deal would include a graduated income tax, the conservation of natural resources, and the maintenance of military strength. The party split has repercussions in the House of Representatives, where the progressives, led by George W. Norris of Nebraska, revolt against the power of Speaker Joseph G. Cannon and amend the rules. Henceforth, members of the Rules Committee are to be elected by the House rather than appointed by the Speaker, and the Speaker is ineligible for membership on that committee. February 8th. The Boy Scouts of America organization is founded in the District of Columbia. It is based on a movement that originated in England in 1908 and rapidly spread to other countries. The United States is the 12th country to join the movement. The organization is chartered by Congress in 1916. March 17th. The Campfire Girls organization is formed at Lake Sebago, Maine. It is chartered in 1912. March 19th. The House of Representatives amends the House rules to reduce the power of the Speaker and make him ineligible for membership on the Rules Committee. March 26th. The Immigration Act of 1907 is amended by Congress to exclude from the United States paupers, criminals, anarchists, and diseased persons. April 12. William Graham Sumner, 69, economist and sociologist, dies in Englewood, New Jersey. From his professor's chair at Yale University, he had wide influence as an advocate of free trade and big business for more than 35 years. 21. Samuel Langhorne Clemens, 74, prolific author of novels, essays, and volumes on his travels, dies in Reading, Connecticut. He is known nationally and internationally as the beloved humorist Mark Twain, a name he invented from his brief career as a riverboat pilot. April 25. Charles Evans Hughes, Governor of New York, is appointed an Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court by President Taft. May 16. The Bureau of Mines is established in the Department of the Interior. June 5. William Sidney Porter, 48, who developed the art of the short story under the name of O. Henry, dies in New York City. June 18. The Mann-Elkins Railroad Act is passed by Congress, further strengthening the Interstate Commerce Commission by giving it jurisdiction over telephone, telegraph, and cable companies. June 20. New Mexico Territory, with a population of more than 325,000, and Arizona Territory, with a population of more than 200,000, are authorized by Congress to form state governments and apply for admission to the Union. June 24. Congress passes legislation requiring that radio equipment be carried on all passenger ships leaving the United States. June 25. Congress establishes the Postal Savings Bank system, under which 2% interest is paid on savings accounts. The system is abolished in 1967. June 25. Congress passes the Publicity Act, requiring that U.S. representatives report on campaign contributions received by them. June 25. The White Slave Traffic Act, commonly called the Mann Act, is passed by Congress, barring the transportation of women across state lines for immoral purposes. July 4. Melville Weston Fuller, 77, Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court since 1888, dies in Sorrento, Maine. President Taft replaces Fuller with Edward Douglas White, an Associate Justice since 1894. White is the first Associate Justice promoted to Chief Justice. October 17. Julia Ward Howe, 91, author and lecturer, writer in 1862 of The Battle Hymn of the Republic, dies in Middletown, Rhode Island. She was a founder of the American Women's Suffrage Association and president of the U.S. branch of the Women's International Peace Association, and the first woman to join the American Academy of Arts and Letters. October 26th. William James, 68, psychologist and philosopher, author of Varieties of Religious Experience, dies in Chocorua, New Hampshire. November 8th. In the midterm elections, the Democrats gain control of the House of Representatives for the first time since 1885, but the Republicans retain control of the Senate. Woodrow Wilson is elected governor of New Jersey. November 14th. The first airplane to take off from the deck of a U.S. warship is a Curtiss biplane flown by Eugene Ely from the USS Birmingham, riding at anchor at Hampton Roads, Virginia. December 3rd. Mary Baker Eddy, 89, founder of the Christian Science Church and author of Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, passes in Newton, Massachusetts. History note: a Curtiss plane, piloted by Eugene Ely, makes the first aircraft take off from the deck of a ship. The history year of 1911. In the third year of President Taft's administration, the rift between Taft and Theodore Roosevelt widens as the latter openly sides with the progressives and Taft allies himself with the conservatives. Senator Robert M. La Follette of Wisconsin organizes the progressive Republicans into a league to promote their goals: direct primary elections, direct election of U.S. senators, reform of state constitutions to permit voter initiative, referendum, and recall, and above all, a major reduction in tariffs, views that coincide closely with those of Roosevelt. The Pinchot-Ballinger controversy of 1910, during which Gifford Pinchot, a staunch Roosevelt supporter and an ardent conservationist, was discharged by Taft as chief of the Forest Service, further alienated Roosevelt. However, at least one of his dreams comes true, and he presides in person at the opening of a dam across the Salt River in Arizona Territory, the construction of which was begun in his administration, and which bears his name. At the year's end, it is Roosevelt, under the banner of the New Nationalism, who proposes to lead the progressives against conservatism despite the initiative taken by the senator from Wisconsin. Taft suffers a minor but humiliating defeat in foreign policy. He negotiates a reciprocal trade agreement between the United States and the Dominion of Canada, under which a group of articles produced in both countries would be duty-free and another group would carry common rates of duties. Despite opposition by progressives, favorable legislation is passed in Congress. But the Canadian people, still smarting over the definition of the Alaskan boundary that was settled by a British vote in favor of the United States in 1903, are further angered by rumors that the reciprocity agreement could lead toward ultimate annexation of Canada by the United States. The Canadian electorate votes out of office the Liberal government of Sir Wilfrid Laurier that favors the agreement, and reciprocity in trade with the United States is defeated. January 21st. The National Progressive Republican League, representing the progressive wing of the Republican Party, is organized by U.S. Senator Robert M. La Follette of Wisconsin. February 3rd. The electric self-starter for automobiles, for which Charles F. Kettering holds the patent, is demonstrated. Kettering is a vice president of Dayton Engineering Laboratories Company, Delco, which is acquired in 1916 by the General Motors Company. March 7th. Some 20,000 U.S. troops are ordered to the Mexican border to protect American interests during a revolution led by Francisco Madero. The troops are recalled on June 24th. March 18th. The Roosevelt Dam, built across the Salt River in Arizona, about 75 miles northeast of Phoenix, is opened by Theodore Roosevelt. March 25th. Fire sweeps the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory in New York City. About 145 persons, most of them women, are trapped and killed. May 1. The U.S. Supreme Court rules that the forest reserves of the United States are subject to federal rather than state regulation. May 15. The U.S. Supreme Court, in Standard Oil Company, New Jersey, v. U.S., orders dissolution of the Standard Oil Company of New Jersey on the ground that it engages in unreasonable restraint of trade. The company controlled 33 subsidiaries and was the glaring example monopoly in its field. The ruling, expressing the principles of Chief Justice White, marks the first use of the rule of reason in interpretation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. May 29. The U.S. Supreme Court, ruling in U.S. v. American Tobacco Company, finds the Tobacco Trust to be in violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. June 9. Carrie Amelia, nation 64, temperance activist famous for her hatchet-wielding forays into saloons, dies in Leavenworth, Kansas. July 7. A treaty barring for 15 years pelagic sealing north of the 30th parallel and regulating land sealing is signed by the United States, Great Britain, for Canada, Russia, and Japan, in a move to protect the endangered animals and thus ensure continuance of the sealing industry. July 24. The United States and Japan renew their commercial treaty, continuing gentlemen's agreement, under which Japan pledges not to issue passports to laborers wishing to emigrate to the United States, while still maintaining the Japanese right of immigration. August 22nd. Statehood for Arizona is vetoed by President Taft because he considers the proposed state constitution's provision for recall of judges a threat to the independence of the judiciary. September 12th to November 5th. The first cross-country airplane flight is made by Galbraith R. Rogers, flying from New York City to Long Beach, California, in a right biplane in 82 hours 4 minutes of flying time over a period of 7 weeks. October 16th. The Progressive Republicans meet in Chicago and nominate Robert M. La Follette as their candidate for the presidency. October 29th. Joseph Pulitzer, 64, founder of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and of the Pulitzer Prizes, dies in Charleston, South Carolina. Like his rival William Randolph Hearst, Pulitzer promoted the technique of sensational news coverage. December 18th. The United States abrogates an 1832 treaty with Russia because of that country's refusal to honor passports of Jewish Americans and certain clergymen. December 23rd. Theodore Roosevelt announces in a private letter his availability as the Republican candidate for the presidency. History note: the front page of the Chicago Daily Tribune newspaper describes the sinking of the Titanic.